And welcome everybody to today's exciting episode.
Why aye, man? Come on down to Geordie's Shore, man. Why aye? Blow paste. Baker Grove.
Biker Grove, I know. Never watched Geordie Shore.
Yeah, it's all right.
Jeff man?
I love the old Geordie accent.
It's great, isn't it? One of my favourite comedians is Geordie.
Yeah. Ross Noble. Yeah.
That's the one.
It adds to the comedy. I think
does.
if he didn't have that accent, he wouldn't be as funny.
I know, because like Geordie, I'm going to get slated by Geordies here, but they always sound like they're asking a question, don't they?
Kind of. Yeah. I know what you mean.
It's the way they inflect. It always goes sort of upwards at the end.
I'm actually going to insult two groups of people now because I've
Great.
I've got
Not even a minute in.
well, it's just my personal opinion, so it doesn't mean anything. Yeah, I feel like a Geordie accent on a woman is quite nice, but on a guy, it's different. Like it doesn't sound as appealing. But same for Liverpool. So with the Liverpudlian accent, I prefer that on a bloke than a woman. Does that make sense?
Okay.
I don't know why. I just think it sounds nicer on the ears.
Not going to comment on the latter because my brother is married to a Liverpudlian one. So
Yeah, stay out of that one then.
yeah, that debate is not even on the table for me.
Yeah.
Scottish and Irish accents, I think, are always really nice with a woman.
Yes. Yeah. Well, unless they're angry and drunk, and then a Scottish woman is scary.
yeah, very scary, to be fair. Probably scarier than Irish.
Yeah, I hear one quite often, and it is scary. Yeah, no comment.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, we won't reveal who that is. But anyway, it's my episode today, and this time I've actually researched it.
Oh,
I've been able to.
Nice.
I managed to listen to the Cage St. Osyth episode the other night. And I was so disappointed with myself. Although we did have some messages saying, you did a good job of it and whatnot. Keith Egerton, who suggested the episode, he said, all right, fair enough. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of information. You've done the best you could. I wasn't really happy with my own performance. And this week, I wanted to go above and beyond.
Oh.
So I'm hoping that I've actually done that.
Okay.
And this is kind of following on from your Christmas episode.
Oh, yes.
Which was recent. Which, in case you're not listening to this in order. For us, it was last week.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that in one of the cases, one of the stories that you told, there was a woman who seemed to fall foul to spontaneous human combustion.
Yeah, she exploded, she did.
Yeah. And I said that would possibly be coming up. Well, it's coming up. It's today.
Oh, nice.
I'm doing it. And I've actually got some research and some notes on my phone to be going through. So,
Can I start off by saying,
go on.
for the longest time, I always thought spontaneous human combustion was like false. It didn't exist.
Did you?
Yeah, I thought it was just like a myth. I didn't think it was real until recent years.
My sister scared me half to death back in the 1980s when I was a little boy, telling me about spontaneous human combustion.
Right.
And I was always convinced that, it could happen to you at any time, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I mean, she's not wrong.
I mean, well, is she? I don't. Well, let's dig into it and let's find out. So, when do you think the first case of spontaneous human combustion happened?
Okay. Well, the story I read last week was like 1855, I think. So let's go 1820.
A little bit earlier than that.
Oh, 1600s?
No, not 1600s. It was 1746.
Oh.
Was the first account of spontaneous human combustion. The term was coined by a Royal Society member, Paul Raleigh, in 1746, and he came up with the term when he was describing the death of the Countess Cornelia Zangheri Bandi. I believe.
Phew.
I think she was Italian.
Well done. That's some pronunciation there.
A countess, and like I said, I got some screenshots on my phone because I didn't want to write out all of this because you know these pages. I've only got so many pages in this paranormality research book, and you know I'll try and keep some for later episodes.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Lady Countess Cornelia Zangheri Bandi.
What a name.
She was a 66-year-old countess, and described as dull and heavy. Right?
Oh, is she a larger lady? Dull and heavy.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. It happened after what was her last dinner, where she'd invited people over. You know, it could be a countess. She was always what's it called? Hostessing. You know,
Yeah.
parties and stuff like that. So yeah, she'd had dinner that night. Some accounts report that she was a brandy drinker. Okay.
Okay.
And that she used to sprinkle camphorated brandy on her body to relieve physical pain. Remember, this was the age before real doctors and science. So maybe when you put brandy on your skin and rub it in, it makes you feel warm or something like that. Like deep heat solution does these days. Or but that's what she was doing.
Because they used to put like whiskey on a baby's gum to stop teething and things.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, numbs, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Her maid accompanied her to her room, and the two of them spent over 3 hours chatting and praying, as they were godly people. The maid left her mistress already asleep, but the next day, when she did not get up at the usual time, the maid went to wake her and found the remains of the countess. The room was full of soot. The body of the countess had been reduced to a pile of ashes that was little more than 1 meter from the bed. So she wasn't even in bed when this happened.
Oh, right. Okay.
Although her lower legs below the knee, 3 fingers and the front of her skull were relatively intact, the rest of her had just been burnt and just completely cinders, ashes. Yeah. But they were covered by a greasy and smelly residue.
Ugh. No good.
On the floor there was an oil lamp covered with ashes but without oil in it. And the way the sheets were found seemed to indicate that the countess had risen at some point during the night. So she might have got up to use a chamber pot or something like that, maybe, back in those days. And for some reason, yes, this spontaneous human combustion had occurred.
Maybe she felt a burning inside and got up.
Maybe. I suppose it's important to note the oil lamp at this point. Although there was no oil in it, maybe that had all burnt out by the time the maid got into the room. But that will feature in a little while. See, I've written down some traits that are common with spontaneous human combustion. Number 1 is it usually, not always, but 80% of the time, it's usually an elderly female that it happens to. Number 2, the hands and feet generally are still there, relatively intact, have fallen off the body, if you like. The flames have engulfed the torso, the head, and maybe the upper arms and upper legs, but generally hands and feet with little stumpy bits coming out of them are still there, relatively intact. In the case of the countess, we said that there was fingers still there. Number 3, the fire doesn't spread too far, particularly outwards. It might maybe above might get a bit burned, but generally the fire doesn't spread outwards. Now, if your sofa catches fire, have you ever seen a video of
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that goes up.
Yeah, there was quite a notable video on YouTube, I think it was, a few years ago, where like the fire rescue people had demonstrated what happens when a sofa catches fire, because sofas weren't always fireproof, and they literally put a cigarette on a fire, and within 3 minutes that entire room was just engulfed in flames. This doesn't tend to happen with spontaneous human combustion. It's even been said that the chair they were sitting in is largely undamaged in some cases. Not all. Some of them just burned the chair away, but not really anything any further than that. So that is notable. 4, this greasy residue that I mentioned with the Countess, that is pretty much always the case with spontaneous human combustion. And I will come back with a theory on that. It generally is said to have a very offensive odour.
So after the spontaneous combustion.
Yeah, after the fire's gone out, there's greasy residue in the surrounding area. It's very smelly. Not just like that sort of burny smell, but, you know, horrible sort of...
Yeah.
I'm guessing the way dead stuff smells, you know?
Yeah, fun fact for you. My mum used to be she was a policewoman, ambulance driver. She's had quite a few like cool careers. And she said the smell of burning human is something that never leaves you.
Yeah.
It's the worst smell in the world. She said when she thinks about it, she can like smell it. Like
I think my mum said the same thing. She used to be a care worker for people with... Now, I don't want to say a nasty word. I think the modern term is cerebral palsy.
Okay, yeah.
Looking after those people, and one of those decided to set themselves on fire one day, although they managed to extinguish it, but she said the same thing, like that smell of burning flesh is just horrendous.
Yeah.
Like the worst thing. Number 5, and this one goes back to the times that you were talking about in your Christmas episode, the 1800s. It was said that alcoholism was the cause of spontaneous human combustion.
So too much alcohol.
That was the original theory. Although I don't think that one there's not enough strong evidence to support that. I think back in the time, in those times, because I think it was just in 1839 or something like that, someone came out with this theory of alcoholism. But they'd only had, according to sources, 200 to 300 cases of spontaneous human combustion that had been examined, and almost all of them were said to be alcoholics.
Okay.
Alcoholics and smokers do feature quite heavily with spontaneous human combustion. Is it the cause? That is still open for debate.
Just you saying 200-300 people is quite high statistically for spontaneous human combustion.
It is, yeah, considering the first one was only in, 1746. And between there and 100 years later, they'd had 200-300 cases, supposedly.
Gotcha.
I think some of them could have just been house fires. This is the thing, but in house fires, where people die of fire in a house fire, generally the limbs go first. And then the body, and yet with spontaneous human combustion, it's the other way round. The body burns, the limbs often stay intact.
And if you get eaten by a large cat, it's your butthole that goes first.
Or birds. So, we've got some 20th century cases.
Ooh.
Here, these are modern time, or fairly modern times. I guess not modern at all, really. We're in the 21st century now, aren't we?
Yeah, more modern, yes.
More modern, more recent. And I've got these as screenshots on my phone. So, next page, there we go. Right, so, one of the most notable ones, 2nd of July, 1951, a woman called Mary Reeser, who was a 67-year-old woman, was found burned to death in her house by her landlady. Now, her landlady, for whatever reason, realised that the house's doorknob was unusually warm. I don't know how she realised that or what she was doing to realise, oh, just go around checking everybody's doorknobs, make sure they're not too cold. But I don't know.
You got a warm knob? I'm going to check it.
But anyway, she apparently noticed that the doorknob was unusually warm, so she called the police. And the police, when they entered the home, found Mary Reese's body completely burned into ash with only one leg remaining. The chair she'd been sitting on was destroyed. Like I said, sometimes it does happen. Now, Mary Reese took sleeping pills and was also a smoker. Right? Despite its proliferation in popular culture, the contemporary FBI investigation ruled out the possibility of spontaneous human combustion. A common theory was that she was smoking a cigarette after taking the sleeping pills and then fell asleep while still holding the cigarette. Never a good idea. This could have ignited her gown, ultimately leading to her death. Her daughter-in-law stated, "The cigarette dropped into her lap. Her fat was the fuel that kept her burning. The floor was cement and the chair was by itself. There was nothing else around her to burn." This was America.
Meemaw exploded.
But that in itself, I mean, just sleeping pills.
Yeah, so no alcohol.
But no, but apparently not. No.
Okay, so that goes that theory up.
I mean, just sleeping pills. Is that going to keep you unconscious while you're burning to death after dropping a cigarette on your lap? I'm not 100% convinced.
I'd like to think you'd wake up from the hot flames.
You'd think so. There is like another theory is that these people. Well, should I go through some more cases before I say it? Because I don't think maybe she's not the only person that a cigarette is the proposed theory. Margaret Hogan, an 89-year-old widow who lived alone in a house on Prussia Street in Dublin, Ireland, was found burned almost to the point of complete destruction on the 28th of March 1970. Yeah? Plastic flowers, which were a decoration on a table in the middle of the room, had been melted into a liquid, and the TV had also got a melted screen. Now, there's a glass screen. In 1970, these are like the old tube-style TVs, so the fire would have been intense. And that was 12 feet away from the armchair. Otherwise, the surroundings were almost untouched. Her 2 feet and both legs from below the knees were completely undamaged. There was a small coal fire that had been burning in the grate when her neighbour left the house the previous day. However, no connection between this fire and the one that consumed Mrs. Hogan could be found. An inquest held on the 3rd of April 1970 recorded death by burning, with the cause of the fire listed as unknown.
Unknown.
So, I mean, if we were going back to the cigarette, the fire, particularly like wood fires and coal fires, they can spit out cinders, can't they? Which could potentially start a fire. I don't know. Maybe there was a fire guard in place. People used to use. I remember having a fire guard in our front room in the 1980s.
I've got one.
You've got one, yeah? To stop exactly that happening, stop it setting your carpets on fire and stuff. So, yeah, that one was listed as unknown. On the 24th of November 1979, during Thanksgiving weekend, Beatrice Oxke, a 51-year-old woman, was found charred to death in her home in the village of Bolingbrook, Illinois, United States. Henry Thomas, a 73-year-old man, time, was found burned to death in the living room of his council house on the Russow estate in Ebbw, South Wales in 1980. Most of his body was completely incinerated, leaving only his skull and part of each leg from below the knee. The feet and legs were still clothed in socks and trousers.
Ooh.
Half the chair in which he had been sitting in was also destroyed, the other half completely fine. police forensic officers decided that the incineration of Thomas was due to the wick effect.
That is interesting, though, that the flames and things seem to be in a specific area. Like, it's not burning houses down.
No, it doesn't spread, particularly linearly. It doesn't spread outwards. Now, as I said, with the cause of the cigarette burning incident with the sleeping pills and stuff, there is a theory that maybe these people die of a heart attack and then drop the cigarette, or then for some reason that's when the fire gets them. So they're already dead when it happens, which is why they don't respond. You know, again, some of the early theories was due to intoxication with the alcohol. They were so intoxicated they just didn't realise it was happening. You know how you don't feel pain, you fall over and smash your face in when you're drunk and you don't really feel it. The same thing was the theory with spontaneous human combustion. These people were on fire but not even aware of it.
Yeah.
Again, if they had already died of a heart attack, which is another theory, they wouldn't be aware. At least they wouldn't be able to respond. Because I mean, in my eyes, only being asleep due to taking sleeping pills is not a good excuse. If you're on fire, I'm fairly sure you're going to wake up.
Yeah.
And all right, you might be elderly with lack of mobility or whatever, but you're going to try and do something.
Oh, but I mean, large fires don't the fumes and stuff.
Yes, yeah. In house fires, most of the
Yeah.
time people die of smoke inhalation before they actually die of burning to death.
Yeah, but then these fires are so condensed in such a small area. I don't know if that would be the case.
Now,
It's very interesting.
as I said, on that last one, it was put down to the Wick effect,
John Wick effect.
if you like.
Nice.
The Wick effect, or candle effect, right, is a theory that comes from the external source of ignition. Now, the fire lights the clothing or blanket or whatever they're wearing. The clothing catches fire, pierces the skin, and then the body fat starts oozing out.
Ugh.
Yeah. Which saturates the clothing, which, as you know, the way a candle burns, the wick in the middle is burning, but the actual the wax is the fuel for the fire. So the wick burns very slowly, whereas the wax is what is
Yeah.
creating that fire. And this is the theory with the wick effect with spontaneous human combustion. So it's the body fat that is fueling the clothing or whatever to keep burning and keep it localized.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a thin theory in my eyes.
I mean, it does kind of make sense to me. Like, it's not far-fetched in any way.
No, and it is a fairly good theory, almost. The thing is, when you think of crematoriums, right? Dead bodies that go to a crematorium. Now, do you know much about that?
Isn't it so the coffin is lined with something, isn't it?
The coffin doesn't go into the cremation machine, not unless you specifically request it. They take the body out of the coffin.
There's loads of things, isn't it? Loads of, like, not flamethrowers, is it?
Basically, yeah.
Is it loads
Yeah,
of
it goes
ones?
into basically a kiln that heats the body up to 1,000 degrees centigrade, not Fahrenheit, centigrade.
Jeez. Yeah.
And they are in there for 90 minutes.
That's a long time.
And that still doesn't get rid of all the bones. Honestly, crematorium workers are employed to take the remaining bones that haven't been burned and grind them down into a powder so it will fit in your urn that you're taking home so mum can go on the mantelpiece and not have bits of bone sticking out the top of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's how hard it is to burn bone. These things, after a professional has tried to cremate your body, they still have to grind up parts of it into a powder to complete it.
Oh, so in these cases...
those bones are gone.
Wow. So potentially more than 1,000 degrees. Is it 1,000 degrees?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly how hot you'd have to go to just completely incinerate all bones in your body, but it's got to be hot.
Yeah.
And originally, these people, most people investigating figured that that it would take hours and hours for a body to burn completely. But one case of spontaneous human combustion was discovered. I think it was in London, in this guy's flat. I think his name was Barry. I can't remember. I didn't write this one down. But when they discovered it, there was a pan of boiling water on the stove that hadn't yet boiled dry. So he'd spontaneously human combusted and completely incinerated within minutes, basically. Because how long does it take for a pot of boiling water to boil dry? Not long. Hour, two?
Yeah. So that's
certainly not 12
bizarre.
hours or overnight.
Yeah. So it's so quick and so hot that bones just disintegrate.
Yeah.
The whole
Gone.
Gone.
Turn to nothing. Ash.
I wonder why there's a cut-off point with like certain limbs and things.
The theory is that there's not enough body fat to fuel the flames in the extremities.
Ah.
Now, muscle will fuel it, but not very efficiently. It's fat that will burn a lot better than anything else in the human body. So they tested this in 2016.
Ooh, recent.
A program called BBC Earth Lab. They tested it on a pig carcass. They wrapped it up in a blanket, dropped a cigarette on it, and the cigarette caught the fire to the blanket. And do you know how quickly the flames spread?
I'm going to guess 40 seconds.
Not very quickly.
Oh.
Certainly not quick enough to explain spontaneous human combustion.
Right,
it did make a small circle of burning material, barely pierced the skin, didn't reach the fat, certainly didn't produce the wick effect. They ended up having to use an accelerant on it, like pouring like liquid. I don't know whether it was paraffin or what they used, but they used a liquid accelerant and started fanning the flames, and then the pig started burning properly. Or the whole blanket. However, everything that wasn't covered by the blanket was left perfectly intact. It was a fair go.
Yeah.
But it wasn't anywhere near the destructive capabilities of spontaneous human combustion. The pig was still intact. It was whole. You probably could have carved it up and served it as your roast dinner.
Lovely.
But it did not really have the desired effect of recreating spontaneous human combustion. So the wick effect, although it's a good explanation, it's not perfect.
It's not quick enough. It's not hot enough.
No.
Okay.
And now I come to a case in September 1982 where this kind of debunks it anyway, because this one was actually witnessed. A woman called Jean Saffin in North London was sat at the kitchen table in her apartment with her father and her brother-in-law, when, by all accounts, quoted from the brother-in-law, Jean just suddenly burst into flames. No source of ignition, she wasn't drinking, she wasn't smoking, she just burst into flames. When she opened her mouth to scream, fire belched out of her own mouth.
That's terrifying.
They managed to get her on the floor, covering blankets, and extinguish it, pat her down, and managed to put the flames out. Called an ambulance, and unfortunately, she didn't die from the spontaneous human combustion. She didn't reduce herself to ashes, but she did unfortunately die in the hospital some hours later.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
Yeah, man.
And from this case, a British researcher called Brian Ford came up with a theory, and it this is probably one of my favourite theories so far, is that Gene was on a diet at the time. Now, dieting is common, particularly in this day and age, with influencers telling you to look your best and, be buff, and everybody goes to the gym now, and everybody's on a high protein, low carb diet. And what does that do? You know what that does because you've done the diet yourself.
I was tired.
You retired. Yeah, you didn't do it for too long. It might have saved your life. But that puts your body in a state called ketosis. Yeah?
Ah, yes.
You did the keto diet.
Yes.
Gave up on it after, 3-4 weeks?
30 days I lasted.
30 days, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And although I did lose a little weight, it's not... I found for me personally, it wasn't sustainable.
It's not meant to be.
Yeah.
And any doctor or anybody that hasn't got a trendy podcast in health and well-being will tell you it's not a good idea to be on a high protein, low carb diet for extended periods of time. Yeah, it's fine for short-term weight loss like what you did, 4 weeks, maybe 2 months at most, if you can stomach it for that long.
Yeah.
Absolutely great. The pounds will fall off. But being in a permanent state of ketosis, the longer you're in it, the more that your body is flooded with something called ketones. Ketones are what breaks down the fat in your body in place of the carbohydrate.
Yes.
Yeah, supplying you with energy. And one form of ketones is known as acetone.
Ah.
Do you know what acetone is?
No, because I'm thinking of the acid in your stomach.
It turns your stomach acid into acetone, basically, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And floods all your fat muscles and everything with this acetone. Acetone is what women use to take off nail varnish.
Oh.
Very corrosive, highly flammable.
Yeah,
extremely, extremely flammable.
And your body can produce that naturally.
Yes, and you can flood your entire body with acetone by being in ketosis too much for too long.
Yeah.
It'll also turn your blood into acid.
Jesus.
Honestly, it acidifies your blood. I mean, this was one of the things that Brian Ford came up with as his theory, and he made little meat humans, if you like, little models, marinated them in acetone, and then set fire to them. Produced a lovely blue flame and produced exactly the desired effect that he wanted. The main meat of the little models burned away completely, leaving just the extraneous limbs that weren't, quite so saturated or whatever. And that was a very good explanation. Now, also with this, I'd like to say that we still don't know what causes the fire to actually ignite in this situation, whether it's just natural body heat or whatever. Because, so many people are in ketosis all the time, in the gym, working out, elevating their body temperature. They don't catch fire.
Yeah.
So why it happens quite most of the time, 99% of the time, when people are solitary, not really doing anything, relaxing in their chair, there's no explanation for it. There really isn't. And it's such a rare thing that anybody listening to this at home who is on a keto diet, don't worry so much about spontaneously human combusting. I would worry more about the ketones that are flooding your body, turn your blood to acid, because that has far worse health impacts and more guaranteed impacts than combusting. I mean, we're talking like at the start, you're probably going to get lethargic. You won't you won't have much energy. I think your breathing, you get laboured breathing because your blood isn't supplying oxygen to your brain enough, so you start breathing. People flare their nostrils out without even realising that they're doing it, and this eventually will lead to liver damage, like cirrhosis of the liver and failed kidneys. But who needs liver and kidneys when you've got a body like a Greek god, eh? Am I right?
Very true.
Yeah.
I actually saw something yesterday that this dietitian guy said that the key to a diet and losing weight and being healthy all comes down to your liver.
Yeah.
That's what he thinks.
And being in ketosis is really not doing your liver any favours, to be fair.
He said if you look after your liver, then everything should fall into place. Yeah, good.
But that is the thing. When you're flooding your body with ketones like this and turning your blood to acid, you can do your liver like more. If you were to say stay on like a keto diet for a year, you'd probably do something like 10 years worth of alcohol damage to your liver. That's how bad this is. I don't think people realise that. So, because this is fairly, well, it's not recent, but this is only in recent years that this has come up. Everybody's known for years and years and years, decades, that going on a protein diet can help you, reduce body fat and make you muscular and look buff and all that sort of thing. And it's always been sort of recommended, even Googling it today. Oh, should I go on a high protein diet? Google will go, yeah, it's brilliant. It's really healthy for you. But it's that extended period of time that really brings those health benefits, from being good to being really, really bad.
I think a lot of people as well, especially younger listeners, won't realise that the keto thing isn't a new thing, because it stems from the Atkins diet from years ago. It's pretty much the same thing in a way. Yeah,
basically.
But the body is very mysterious. When you said about we don't know what ignited the flame and just the random. I read a story where this is going to sound like I'm trying to be funny, and I'm not. I actually saw a story where there was a woman who had gas problems, and whenever she whenever she goes and to meet up with this new boyfriend, she was holding in her farts because obviously she wants to be all sweet and sexy and stuff.
Women don't fart. They create rainbows.
They don't want to be letting rip. And she actually ended up hospitalising herself because
from methane poisoning or something.
Yeah, it was. Really? It was something like that, where she was just holding in this gas, and it was something like 8 or 12 hours straight, because it was the first night where she was staying around her new boyfriend's house, and she just didn't let rip the whole time that she was there. And she ended up going to hospital, and her body almost killed her from holding in her farts. So that's
fair play.
The point is, your body does weird stuff.
It does stuff. They create all sorts of weird chemicals and smells and gases, and just be you. Yeah, be you. And I think what you should take from this really is not to worry about so much bursting into flames, but also not worry so much about what other people think of you and how you look. And, eat a balanced diet, try and stay healthy if you can. Obviously, some people have got sedentary lifestyles. They don't get around so much, do so much exercise. Just, you do you.
I told you about the two big people in America that... when I went over for holiday, and I was on the other side of the street, and this couple were kind of moving kind of fast, and they were laughing and joking and holding hands, and I could only kind of see from the waist up a little bit. And then as they emerged out of the car, they were morbidly obese, both in electric cars, and they were pushing people off the sidewalk. So from what originally started off as me thinking there's a lovely couple in love, quickly turned to look at those two people laughing at the fact that they're knocking people off the sidewalk.
Well, they drive their mobility scooters because they can't physically walk. Right, only in America. Well, actually, not only in America.
No.
Can't take him with that one. But actually, to try and get to the bottom of why people self-ignite and spontaneously combust, I failed again.
Yeah.
But it's not just me. Everybody who's researched this cannot find the reason. We think that with this whole ketosis thing and the acetone and that, this is our best guess. But the actual source of ignition still remains elusive. No one knows. Nobody.
I mean, we like a mystery here.
We do.
But that's the only recorded case of someone actually seeing spontaneous combustion.
They're very few and far between. There might have been some other people. And, in fact, from what I believe, witnesses that have witnessed spontaneous human combustion actually confirm that the flames that they saw were blue, which is what happens with the acetone.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
So that it does make sense. It doesn't supply a source of ignition. That is the one thing that is always missing. That obviously, like the cigarette is the best, the best guess for most people, but then not always, because some of them don't even smoke. One of them was a homeless guy who was found in an abandoned warehouse, who was obviously aware of it happening. Because his charred remains were found next to a staircase where he had bitten into the banister so hard they had to pry his jaws open. The firefighters did.
Oh, wow. Okay. So he was very aware of his
just to
pain.
remove his body. Yeah, he was very aware of what was happening to him and obviously couldn't stop it.
Damn. Well, this is one mystery that I don't see how they're going to solve it.
I don't know how to solve it. I don't know how to rate it. How do we rate it on how mysterious it is?
Yeah, I mean, the whole mysteriousness of spontaneous human combustion. Because if we don't focus on that, then it's just doom and gloom. So I don't really want to rate doom and gloom very high, to be honest. The actual mystery of spontaneous human combustion. It is a proper mystery. I've got to give it at least an 8, at least, because it is an actual mystery.
It is. And it does come with its advantages. You don't have to pay for a cremation.
Very true. Yeah. I'm giving it an 8.8.
Do you know what? Just before you said that literally the number that flashed into my head.
It was 8.8.
It was like, 8.8.
Well, there we go. It's meant to be.
I'm going at 8.8 as well. I think it's a good mystery. It's a solid. I think it will be a mystery for years to come. I
think the 8.8 was in the back of my mind because I just told the story of the two fat people. So I think
he ate two fat ladies.
Yeah.
Are you going to bingo recently? Or?
No. Do you know there's two things I want to do? Bingo and karaoke.
Have you never done karaoke?
Never done it. No. I don't even know what my karaoke song would be. I have no idea.
I don't know. Don't know if they started producing Sleep Token karaoke songs yet.
No. Well, no one can sing like that, Angel. I'd go something husky, I think. Or I'd just do like a country version or something.
The last time I did karaoke, I did Tenacious D's tribute. Classic. And I actually got a standing ovation from the pub. I was very proud.
Yeah. Did you even do the fliggle-doo?
Yeah, everything. Yeah. I was proper Jack Blacking it up, mate. But, performer, ain't I?
Do you know, surprisingly, that was the one song at... do you remember, I don't know if everyone will remember, our guest Sam, the wrestler?
Oh, yeah.
So his wedding, the one song that got everyone up on their feet and singing and dancing was Tenacious D Tribute. Yeah.
It's such an awesome song.
Yeah.
It's almost the best song in the world.
It is. It's also one of them songs that, like, when... you don't hear it for a long time. It could be like 5 years. It could be 8 years. But when you hear it, you're instantly like, what a song. Yeah. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And that is it for today. That is it.
I like it. I think you've redeemed yourself from the last one. I thought that was very well researched, very, very well presented. It's got me scared about acetone now, and
the keto diet.
I think my next diet
never going on a keto diet again now, are you?
I'm gonna rethink my diet choices, to be honest. But now it's very, very interesting. Not as a myth as I thought.
Do you know the worst thing about the keto diet? Like, this is extra to my research, because I just kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole when I started getting into that part. Is the whole like ketones and that, and the turning acid to blood, that is known as diabetic ketone acidosis.
Right.
Normally only associated with diabetic people who have blood sugar problems.
Yeah.
But since the recent years, when so many people are starting to do like keto diet, and there's so many people going on this high protein, low carb diet, it's actually become a thing that the healthy people start getting.
Getting diabetes.
Yeah, well, diabetes causes, it can cause diabetes, but again, with the liver and the kidney failure and stuff, like I say, that was normally associated with diabetics, but now even healthy people are starting to get it.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
So,
that makes sense.
Yeah. Listen to your well-being podcasts wisely.
Yes.
Oh, and do not consider this as health advice or legal advice or financial advice or anything. And until next time, I've been Pirate.
I'm Josh.
This has been Paranormality UK. Ta-ta.
Ta-ta! That was me exploding.
That was you bursting into flame.